We are very happy that you've come today to hear and to participate in the conversation around financial resources. And we are very, very pleased to be bringing this to you. The mayor's on her way, so we'll be, as she comes in, we'll start a conversation with her, and she'll come and give a few opening remarks. But I wanted to just really thank all of you for coming out here today. One of the challenges that we've had in Baltimore over the last couple of years is really around financing the business community, financing in particular the small business and minority business in this city. And so a couple of years ago, Aaron from the Millikan Institute and SBA got together with us and really started talking about what would that look like if we were to capitalize some of the things. And so we put together a much larger group, including Joe Haskins and some other persons from the business community, and really started looking at what are some of the challenges that we have in the city, what are some of the things that we could do to make a difference. And out of that effort has come a phase one of that, which was really to identify the challenges and then to really look at where there may be policy challenges, where there may be entrenched challenges that we have in Baltimore City that made a difference. And so we've worked on those challenges, and we continue to work on them. That's, my voice keeps bouncing out and in and out, right? Okay. All right, so we've done that. So what I want to do now is I wanted to just have Aaron come up and just introduce some of our sponsors and organizations that are here that that you'll hear from later on today. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. And I want to take a second to thank Brett and Star Mountain Capital, our co-hosts for this morning, as well as members of the steering committee from the Partnership for Lending in Underserved Markets for joining us. I wanted to take a step back and give a little bit of the historicals of what got us here today. Essentially, this all started in June of 2016 when the White House held a meeting asking this question of how to increase economic resilience in urban communities. And it quickly morphed to access to capital for small businesses. As most of you are well aware, small business community contributes something like 2/3 of the job growth in the country. It's closer to 80% outside the US. But essentially there were some statistics that the SBA, who was a co-host for that event, had shared that day. The statistics that they shared were, one, at that moment, June 2016, the country had been going through 65 consecutive months of job growth, principally driven by essentially the rebound from the Great Recession, but largely from the small business community. And in that exact same time period, over the 65 months, they also shared a second statistic. SBA-backed lending to the African American small business community had declined 91%. So pause for a second. In an up market, this segment was getting less capital. So clearly there was something worth looking deeper at. And what we ended up doing through a number of follow-up meetings, identifying essentially the structural barriers that were embedded into it, but more importantly, the opportunity side. As you're well aware, whenever there's an underserved market, that market is where majority of the upside is usually going to come from, if you can find it well. And so based off of that, we decided to launch the Partnership for Lending in Underserved Markets, which was a partnership between the Millikan Institute and the Small Business Administration. But in tandem, we realized this could not be an ivory tower dictating a bunch of policy agenda items. This needed to be a partnership with local communities. It needed to be a partnership with the mayor's offices. And we identified two wonderful cities, the city of Los Angeles, where the Millikan Institute is headquartered, but also the city of Baltimore, right here in our backyard. And we found a number of partners that stepped forward, including some of the ones that Paul mentioned. At a high level, we realized, let's form a steering committee, let's form a task force, let's spend a little bit of time understanding. And I remember vividly President and CEO of Harbor Bank, Joseph Haskins, saying to me, look, we've had too many periods of talk. Let's actually try to get to some real actionable solutions. And we followed that leadership, the local leadership, down that path. And during that phase one, we identified so many different problems, but at the end of the day, we tried to figure out, well, how do we prioritize the next steps? How do we prioritize phase two set of activities? And all of this is actually documented in the phase one paper that is scattered throughout the room, but is also on the website that folks can find. But the key thing was there needed to be both a set of local activities and national activities. On the local front, essentially, we needed to be pushing local policy areas around licensing and streamlining the ability for small businesses. There were issues around local research. We really didn't have enough of a grasp of what was going down in each of the cities. And we needed to have something on local technical assistance. For most of the small businesses, that is the key building block, the step to getting access to capital, to being successful. And at the end of the day, success isn't necessarily just an extra loan. Success is building a resilient small business community. We then identified a set of national activities. We realized there were questions around small business data collection at the national level, questions around CRA, questions around the Small Business Administration's own policy initiatives. We started to put in a number of different activities and realized at the heart of it, it is what does it mean for lenders and investors to get extra capacity to focus on the communities we care about. And essentially, the SBIC program emerged as an interesting area, and that's why a number of you are here. So I'd like to take a quick second. Show of hands, how many of you are either lenders or investors? Okay, for the small businesses in the room, those are who you need to talk to. For the rest of you, I think all we need to do is ask ourselves a simple set of questions. What are the opportunities in the city of Baltimore? Where do we see the path going forward? I don't think it makes sense to focus on the past anymore. It's the opportunities in front of us. And with that, I would like to recognize and welcome the Honorable Mayor, Catherine Pugh, to the stage and share a couple of words.
First, let me just say it's an honor to be here with you all this morning. And as a frustrated banker, former banker, started out my career as a banker, hold a master's degree in business, qualification as an economic development specialist by the University of California. Let me just say that, we all realize that there's been a problem in terms of lending in this city for a long time. I started out as a banker, and what I used to do was approve lines of credit for companies and corporations. But what I noticed was that there was not enough lending going on in the African American community or minority communities throughout the city of Baltimore. So I met a gentleman, his name was Sam Daniels, who had an organization called the Council for Equal Business Opportunities. And the reason that we started the Council for Equal Business Opportunities under Sam Daniels was for the very reason that I left banking, because there was not enough lending going on in African American communities, communities of colors, and with women. And so under the Council for Equal Business Opportunities, we actually had a MESBIC. And what I found out, even after being there and during that short period of time, was that even that was limited because it was government controlled. You could only lend X amount of dollars. So what was great for me is that I leveraged my relationship with the banking community to expand and grow small business in Baltimore. So there have been studies that have been done that talk about why aren't we doing this? Where is that pool of money? And as I said to folks, it really is not about the studies at this point. It's about when are we going to begin to do the work that needs to be done in our city? When are we going to create the opportunities for lending? And if we say, in fact, that small business is the backbone of our communities, then why aren't we lending more? And I want you to know, as a Bloomberg city, one of the things that we did, Aaron, was we put together our proposal. Now, we may not win, but understanding that small business is the backbone of our communities, I want to know at what age do we begin to allow young people to get engaged in that kind of an economy? And so, for example, this summer, what I did was raise about $100,000 or more because we want to invest in young people. Like some young people want to go to work, some want to go to college, some want to start their own business. And believe it or not, we invested in young people as early as 9 years of age. I ran into a young man who created the cookie pie company And he actually sold, and so what is a cookie pie? It looks like a pizza, but you slice it just like you would slice a pizza, but it's really cookies. And so we invested in him, and so hopefully he'll continue to grow. And then we invested in a couple of young people who started their own t-shirt businesses. Well, we realized that even we, as a city, could could help those businesses along, because we figured we'd do about $1 million in t-shirt businesses for the city. So we've engaged with some of those young people as well. A couple of other young people with unique business ideas. So if we're talking about lending, and so our proposal is to create this culture of lending and advancing and investing in young people at whatever age they decide that they want to go in business. Because again, we shouldn't be waiting until we're 30 or 40 to begin our first business opportunity. And because we don't have those same kind of resources in our own neighborhoods and communities, then who do we look to? And so I think this is really important that all of you all have come together to talk about investing in small business economy in Baltimore. And the partnership of lending in underserved markets, it's essential, it's important. Because when I think about our main streets and the corridors of our city where we could expand and grow businesses, what are we doing to assure that those businesses are successful? How are we investing in them? And in a city like Baltimore, where you have such great businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, and even with our research institutions, including Morgan State University. For those who don't know, they're also a research institution. You know, when we have these incubators, how many of those individuals are we keeping in our city, allowing them to expand and grow? And that's what investing in small business means to me. I also look at it in terms of how do we begin to deal with some of the unemployment issues that we have in our city. When you think about who, if you were to put all of the small businesses together, who's hiring people in our communities, it is those small businesses. When I look at our house, and I don't know how many of you all have had an opportunity to go to our house. If you haven't, I hope that you will. Because not only is it investing in local and small businesses, it is also allowing people to pop up new ideas and businesses in those locations as well. I also wanted to thank the individuals who are here. I know that Joe Haskins, my personal banker, my banker, is here. I tell Joe I've done everything from my first credit card to my first house, my first car, you name it, my savings account, my political accounts, everything is at Harbor Bank, and they know me like the back of their hands, I'm sure. So, and I thank you. I thank you for all of those opportunities. But Iran, I just want to say that this effort is really important. We look forward to continuing to work with the Milken Institute, because I know that you have some experience in this area, and maybe you can pry these opportunities out of those folks who are sitting in this room, who have capacity and capability and can help us to expand opportunities here in the city of Baltimore. I also see my CPA, Arnold Williams, who's been engaged in this work for quite some time, having chaired our Baltimore Development Corporation, and has continued to pry and ask and deliver for many of us in our communities opportunities to expand and grow businesses. I am excited about what you all will do together, but more importantly, I think the information that is going to be shared this morning can be valuable to many of us. I hope that we're not only listening, but we're sharing, and we're looking for ways that we can collaborate and work together. Again, I believe that the entire objective is about how do we grow small business in our city. And I can tell you, when you're in a city where 67% of the population is African American and that 76,000 people are unemployed, the question has to be, how are we ingratiating those communities? How are we expanding and growing these neighborhoods and communities? And how are we supporting those neighborhoods and communities with opportunities to grow and expand their businesses? My administration is developing evidence-based solutions and evaluating our policies to make Baltimore a national model for MWBE inclusion and support. I tell folks that it really is about how we become more inclusive and diverse in terms of our lending and in terms of our developing businesses and so forth that serve our neighborhoods and serve our communities. We can create a great city, but again, it's how we work together, it's how we support, and more importantly, how we mentor and expand. So in this room is a lot of brain power. I look forward to the outcomes of the conversations that will take place here, but more importantly, how do we develop that pipeline that continues to grow and enhance the development of businesses in this city? Thank you for this opportunity.